Hi, I'm Jason, and this is the Cultural Breakdown. This whole subject about Barbie being banned in certain countries does seem a little bit outside the wheelhouse of what I like to talk about here. But since it does deal with the entertainment industry, I decided to throw my hat in on this because I did find it kind of interesting. So, right now, you have the Philippines weighing a decision on whether they're going to pull Barbie from the theaters. And this comes after Vietnam did announce that they're going to be banning Barbie from the theaters in their country. And this is over a disputed map that's shown in the movie. And a lot of people might not understand what's going on with this map. So I decided to maybe just put out a little educational video, so to speak. So what you have here is, in a very broad stroke, when you have a country that has a water border, what you get is certain economic zones, which means you have access to the resources that border your country. But China, they claim the whole South China Sea area, and there's all these little islands that these various countries around the South China Sea lay claim to, because if they own claims to certain islands, then that means they get access to the resources around that island. And right now, this is what Brunei tries to claim, this is what Philippines claims, Malaysia's claim, and then Vietnam's claim, and this is what China claims. And as you can see, if you zoom in here, there's these little areas that provide oil and natural gas, and that's really the crux of everything of why China wants to claim everything in this area, because they want access to those resources. And all these other countries have certain claims that are like a little bit more reasonable to these resources, but China seems to take a big bite out of everything. And that's the issue of of pandering to China, is you're going to alienate all these other countries, because all these other countries have various claims that China is kind of encroaching on, at least. Well, supposedly, don't know who owns it, but it's not China. Anyway, when you get studios, a lot of times they're looking at this as like, oh, well, who are we going to try to cater to? Because if we're going to show a map of this area, it's gonna upset some people, whether it's going to be like Vietnam or the Philippines or China. So it's like, well, let's just try to like upset the smaller box offices, or try to appease the biggest box office. And China is the biggest box office in that region. I mean, they have over 1 billion people. So even if the movie studios only get 30% of the cut and the other 70% goes to the CCP, they figure that's still a good enough chunk that we can risk alienating Vietnam or Philippines or even Malaysia too. So I think that's their whole goal for that now. But the problem is, there's an insidious nature to studios that are willing to go so far to appease China just for the sake of a box office from that. Because when you look at stuff like this, with Disney face backlash because they think the government agency that oversees a concentration camp, and that's a concentration camp that has human experiments that rivals the actual Holocaust, there's something wrong with that. And then you also have this other thing from China, I mean, other thing from Disney, where they shrunk down Finn in the Chinese poster because they're like, well, maybe black people aren't as popular there, so we're trying to reduce that, even though they talk about like inclusion and diversity over here. In China, they're like, yeah, we try to get rid of that. And that includes other studios making edits to their films, like in Bohemian Rhapsody, they had to edit down any reference of Freddie Mercury being gay in order for it to be shown in China. And a lot of this also comes down to, is it right for a movie studio to edit their own films in order for it to be shown in China? Because right now you got the Pentagon saying that they're not going to provide any military support for, like, if you're making a military themed movie like Top Gun Maverick. This actually was able to be made because it had a lot of support from the US government and the DoD. But if they were actually a studio that worked with China, the DoD wouldn't have helped them out, because China is an adversarial nation to us. And I think that's one of the things that studios need to understand now is they're trying to get that box office, but there's a cost to it, because China is an adversarial country and they are doing stuff that is objectively wrong morally. And is it right to try to like just turn a blind eye to that in order for in order to get money? Now, a lot of people will say like, well, Philippines and Vietnam are pandering or telling them to censor their movie. It's like, well, I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think the creators of Barbie actually made creative choices in their movie in order to try to pander to China. And if China wasn't an issue in this, then they would have made different decisions now. And that's really the issue right now, is China's the one that's kind of making the censorship or trying to force the censorship on people. And some studios are just choosing to go along with that. Other ones are hesitant on that. Like Quentin Tarantino famously said he's not going to edit his movies for China, and I think a lot of studios should do that. Are you giving up the Chinese box office? Yeah, but I think there's more to be had if you try to get rid of them, because I don't think it's really as lucrative as what it used to be, and it's definitely not as lucrative as what it used to be, but I think it's, even at its best, it's not as important as what people think it is. But that's just what I think. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments. I mean, do you think studios have a right to edit their movies for different countries if they want, or should they try to stick true to how they originally envisioned it? Let me know what you think. And if you like the video, click like, share the video out there, and subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date with the latest news. Thank you.